Hi, and as the title suggests, DBM is in need of a bit of love, and in potentially in a couple of ways. So, people who follow me on Twitter will have seen I retweeted something today. It was, quite moving, really. The author of DBM, Mystical OS, wrote something on their forum, and before I go through some of the bits in it, and I'd encourage you to read it if you haven't already, I've got a link in the description below, as well as a link to their Twitter and Patreon for reasons. It's worth bearing in mind the sorts of people who make contributions and great contributions to the community. And some of the ones who are the most well known are not the great contributors, ironically. As sad as it may be, if the likes of Nobble or Asmongold or even these days Taliesin and Evertil disappeared and just stopped what they were doing, it would be sad for the number of people who follow them, but they just watch someone else. But there are certain people who, if they were suddenly to stop, doesn't mean their work would be continued. It doesn't mean you'd just be able to do something else. And chief amongst these are theory crafters and add-on writers. Ultimately, you'd sort of know some of those disappeared. And when it comes to add-ons, some of them were there for convenience, some of them we have. If we thought about it, we wouldn't necessarily need them at all. But some of them are super important. If you're a raider, having your boss mods is super important. And, and I'm sorry if you're going to be one of those whenever I talk about raid add-ons. Oh, I don't have add-ons, I don't have boss mods, and I'm a mythic raider. You're either lying or your raid is carrying you. It's as simple as that. We can even look at Method getting the world second on Mythic Mithrax here. Oh, and what are they using? Boss mods. Everyone does. Or they're being carried. Simple as that. And if you're saying you're not and you're not being carried, then you are lying. And there are two main ones. There are bigwigs and there is DBM. When I first came back to the game after a hiatus, it was towards the end of Cataclysm, I started using DBM, Deadly Boss Mods. There were certain aspects of bigwigs I didn't like. So I used DBM, it did what I needed it to do, and it was fantastic. And it's come on leaps and bounds since then even. In fact, if I were raiding in in BFA, I might well be going back to DBM. The last expansion, Legion, I actually started using bigwigs just because, it just had a little feature that I found really useful. But I missed certain features in DBM as well. So I wouldn't like the idea that Deadly Boss Mods would suddenly not be there. Especially as at the moment, it's one of those that I really was in a quandary as to which one I was going to use anyway. The author of DBM, who is able to do it full time, but I want to go through some of the things they've said. I don't know a lot about them. And this again is, the tragedy of some of these things. The people who do so much work, we moan at the moment about things not being tuned correctly and stuff like that. It's ultimately people like this and the theory crafters who stop it being a complete shambles. They are providing Blizzard with so much information that it's untrue. And you think about someone who's writing boss mods add-ons, they can't just update those whenever. They've got deadlines, and those deadlines are not even their deadlines. Blizzard can surprise them with a patch release, and all of a sudden then that is their deadline. To make sure it's all ready for it so that we don't have a meltdown on patch day, as used to be the case in the early years of the game. So I want to go through some of, the statements in this letter. It goes on for much more than this, but it's worth just reading it all through yourself. But I just want to pick on a few comments in here. So it says, first of all, it says, for health and stress reasons, as well as just having a plain crappy PC, straight away that is surprising. Someone who's I don't know how many people actively use Deadly Boss Mods. I don't know that. But, I mean, when you look at, in Cursed Client, there's like over 200 million downloads because there's not 200 million people using it right now. But I'm going to be super conservative in a moment. But it's surprising that someone, because it's natural when someone says, oh, they've been able to go full-time development this, you think, well, of course, naturally, there's so many people using it, you must be getting enough for a full-time income. Yeah, get it. But they're saying here's, so to have a crappy PC, it's like, that's strange, isn't it? I will be stepping down from the mythic raiding scene in WoW. I can very much relate to that, but I have not had anywhere near the pressure this person has. I have been raiding WoW since Burning Crusade and been making mods for DBM since Wrath. almost entirely by myself, mind you. Now, let's be a little bit conservative here. I do not know how many people must use Deadly Boss mods. It's a lot. Let's be super conservative and say 100,000. It must be over that. But let's say there's 100,000 people. I mean, you're using either Bigwigs or Deadly Boss mods. And Deadly Boss mods, may even be the more popular. I'm not sure. But let's say 100,000. And then you think to yourself, okay, if you had no boss mods at all, what sort of experience would that be for the game for you? So how much would it be worth? Let's say $1. Or let's say an average of $2. An average of $2. So if everyone paid an average of $2, that would be $200,000 a year they'd be getting. There's no way what I'm going to be explaining next could possibly be the case. But the first of those is, there's no way they would have a crappy PC, would there? And then you think to yourself, okay, not everyone can actually contribute anything at all. I get that. So, if we're saying an average $2, that means some people contribute $1, some people contribute $3. Let's say there's quite a lot of people that really genuinely can't contribute anything. There will be people who can contribute $5 a year. A year. That's nothing. So it just sort of lets you sort of realise that there are some people in the community who are, who are able to make some money off it. It's really not the ones who we'd miss the most if they went. So the second thing, wasn't the second thing to say, but I'm just sort of picking out the ones here. It says, however, I'm going to be real here. I don't just work on DBM full time. It's all I do, period. Which apparently means full stop. I have no life, no friends, no time to really do anything else at all. I can sort of sympathise with a lot of that. In fact, one of the things that's got me raging, of course, is the fact that I do have work. So I do have a job. That's pretty much the only place I socialise. I don't, friends that I have nowhere near me. They're in locations. So I get the idea of when you're doing your thing that you're fully focused on that. But of course, I like to have multiple hobbies. This person, think about it this way, they're doing DBM and they were doing raiding. Now they're just doing DBM. That's it. That is pretty much their life, with one caveat, which I'll go over. Says it's not as peachy as it sounds. It sounds like hell to me. It's committing to every PTR beta, even when I have a raid character to maintain on live and raids to go to later that night. It's grinding dungeons, artifact power, world quests, gathering mats, leveling blacksmithing so I can craft even more raid gear, etc. Many hours every day. If there is no PTR beta, there's always something to catch up on or do. Even then, sometimes something has to give. PvP mods got axed for recently. It's not even just the code refactoring that 8.0 would need, although that's a huge reason. It's where the hell am I going to find time to spam run battlegrounds to make sure that these things even work? I mean, and that is a key thing you've got to bear in mind. The only way that they can get these boss mods working is to do the bosses. And that's why you will get at the start of an expansion. You must have noticed it already if you're using these. Almost daily updates for these boss mods, because it's refined, as it's improved, as because you've got to bear in mind, by the time most people are doing these mythic bosses, you've got boss mods fully done for it. They're not existing at the moment because the last mythic boss hasn't even been killed. So there's this whole process, and it needs other people as well that will be further ahead of them in the world race to be able to give them some data as well, or for them to get it off videos. There's so much needed to be able to produce boss mods. It's absolutely incredible. And when it's pretty much one person with some help in terms of feeding data and doing it, it's a Herculean task, quite frankly. And next thing that was drawing my attention is, in addition, I'm still a caretaker for another human being too. My 70-year-old disabled mother needs help a lot too. I have to step away from a computer a lot to help her do something she can't do on her own, or do errands or do chores. It says, in fact, since BFA has launched, I've been so buried that my grass is now over 2 feet tall. I have been there. Except in my case, it was laziness. I don't like gardens. But again, it's just emphasising it's not even just money. Just this person just hasn't got the time. And I look at this as well. And when I was looking at this, I think, this person must have an awful lot of very marketable skills. And, I'm sure they could get a job or even just do something freelance that would definitely be possible to monetize. that would alleviate an awful lot of these problems. But then this one, and this is just, I'm going to have to get a little bit political here, but this is not a normal thing. This is not my normal content. I'm not monetizing this video. There's none of my nonsense about me trying to get you to follow me on Twitter or something. This is just a personal one. It says, I have health issues because I can't afford medical insurance or to have dental surgery I need. I take fish antibiotics to manage an abscess tooth I've had since Legion pre-expansion event. And this is what, immediately I read that, because I don't really know this person, I'm afraid. As soon as I read this, I thought, oh, I know which country you come from straight away. Because this is what, just get slightly political at the moment, this is what does my head in when you read the news and, you know, Colin Kaepernick, for example, being criticised for his things. And it's like, oh, you know, you don't know you're born, you live in America, a great country. And, you know, in any other country, you wouldn't have all the things you have. And I'm thinking, yes, you would. For a start, you wouldn't have to go around with an abscess in your tooth. Because although, I mean, even in Britain, trying to find a dentist or get dental work, it's not exactly a laugh. But there's no way that essential surgery would be denied to you on the basis of whether or not you can afford it. I mean, I remember Asmongold very famously had necessary dental work that needed doing. He left for years and years because he couldn't afford it. It's only very recently he's been able to do that. Absolute nonsense. America, please, wake up. You know, every other developed nation on earth doesn't have this issue. As soon as someone says anything like this, I instantly know. How bad is that I instantly know which country you're coming from? But anyway, that aside, the issue is that this person cannot afford the medical insurance necessary to do that. I can't even comprehend that. I cannot get that concept. I mean, at the very least, dear God, can we help out along with that? It says, unfortunately, as my body has gotten more resistant to antibiotics, as it would, the infection has spread to two of the teeth and even begun to spread to parts of my jaw. Now, if I don't have it treated soon, it could escalate into a blood infection. I've delayed it as long as I could with self-medicating to try and save up money to get treatment. This is absolute madness, you know. And I really would implore people at this point. It's like, this is someone, if he stopped doing his work, if he just said, if someone came along and said, you know what, you've got some fantastic skills here. Why are you pissing about with this? Come and work for us. We'll give you a proper wage. And he sort of had to do it because he thinks, well, do you know what? Yeah, I'm not financially good doing this. It needs to be done. And now that he's not even doing the radio, he's not even getting the benefit from his own work. That's another thing to bear in mind. If he's stepped down from raiding, even just mythic raiding, even if he still does a bit of heroic raiding or something like that, he is not even getting the benefit of his own work. And if it doesn't even allow him to feel that he can manage domestically and to have health issues treated, I would feel appalled, absolutely appalled. And I know, you know, we sort of think, because we can have so many add-ons and there's so many people that contribute to the community, we can't give them all $5, $2, even $1 because it would soon add up. But sometimes you just look at something, and even though I don't use DBM now at the moment, but I have done, and you just look at something and you just think, well, do you know what? They need it. And although I can't afford to give this to everyone, I can afford to give it to someone. And if you're in that position, I would please implore you to do that. But I'm not quite finished with these quotes yet either. So it says, again, I don't want either of the above to sound like I'm asking for anything. This isn't a huge plea for money either. I still hate asking. And this is what's more heartbreaking. And a lot of people like this. A lot of people, you know, even when I'm sure he understands what he contributes to the economy, the community, sorry. But economically, it's just not working. And he shouldn't feel bad asking for anything, because his work, unlike a lot of the people that are more well known in the community, no one else is going to do if he stops doing it. Yes, I know we'd still have bigwigs, but like I say, they're very different. And, you know, there's been times when I've used DBM because I much prefer it to bigwigs. There's been times when I've used bigwigs because it's had a thing that DBM didn't, and so on. But they've both come on so much. to have one disappear, all of a sudden a load of people would miss a feature that they've come to rely upon. And even then, even if you say, well, let's just go to bigwigs, there's only one then. What if they step down? That's it. You're all buggered. You're all screwed. So what he is doing is not something that, like if Asmongold just stopped, don't worry, I don't think it's going to, but if he just stopped, well, people would watch someone else stream and talk shit. If Nobble stopped, well, people would have to read the bloody books for themselves. Or other people do things like that as well. And it would be disappointing because these are the people who do it best. But it wouldn't wreck your experience of WoW. Something like this disappearing could. And for a lot of people, so many people. I mean, I was having a look. What was I looking at? On Twitter. He's got less than 1,500 people even following him on Twitter. And again, this is not uncommon for actually some of the greatest heroes of the community. They're unsung heroes. I didn't know their name until today. I didn't look into it. But, let's reading a little bit more on this. It says, anytime I'd think about that, I realise I can't do that for two reasons. I'm not comfortable spending 8 to 12 hours a day working in field and no one watching over mother. This is in terms of him giving it up and trying to... Because he obviously sees the benefit in being able to work at home, doesn't he? In terms of looking after his mother. Which in the last 2 years alone has had 2 heart attack scares. So wouldn't necessarily... What he's saying is it wouldn't necessarily help his stress. Because unless he got a job that paid enough to have carer while he was away, then that's not going to help his stress levels either, because then he'll be worrying about his mother still. You need to be at home. Second reason I can't give it is I just love working on DBM too much. And I mean, he's been doing it for so many years, and if that's all, like he's been saying, if he doesn't have like a social life really, and this has been his thing for so many years, it can't just be given up. It would have been, I am absolutely certain, a massive wrench to have had to step back from the raiding. That would be a huge wrench. And worse than in my case, far worse, because he's stepping back to make everyone else's raiding experience better. That's ultimately what he's doing. He's stepping back because he can't manage the raiding and the modding and his domestic responsibilities as well. So he's given up the one thing out of those 3 that is like almost the relaxing time. And it's to make everyone else's experience better. But anyway, on to the last little quote I'll come on to. It says, so why am I stepping down from raiding then? So I can focus on my health for a minute and try to recharge my sanity and lower my stress. So I can renew my passion for World of Warcraft, so I can cut my damn grass. September now, I can't get any higher just for a few months. So I can maybe do some side oddball work in those regained raid hours for extra income. I mean, that just shouldn't need to be happening. It really shouldn't need to happen. I'm just going to stop it there. You can read the rest of it and read it in the link below. What I would suggest at this point, not everyone can contribute. Not everyone would necessarily want to contribute. You might not even use Deadly Boss mods. But there's other ways to help as well. There's 2 other ways to help. One, as it says at the bottom here, what's this mean for DBM? Best case, mods actually improve with my focus up and stress down. Worst case, more initial bugs. You might have to report more things to me that I might miss early on in new content tier. So you can help that. That will reduce stress if you can give him more information. So reports, logs, things like that. If you can provide that sort of stuff, that is a way to help. But if not, and you don't do testing yourself, so you're not necessarily able to help in that situation, and you can't contribute either, let someone else know. If you know someone who uses DBM, let them know as well, because maybe they'd be able to contribute, and maybe they wouldn't have seen anything about this otherwise, and then you've still helped. So do that, please. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Links in the description below. As I say, I've not put any of my nonsense in there. It's links to this person's Twitter and Patreon. If you're not going to do anything about it yourself, at least share it with some other people. So thanks for listening if you made it this far. Until next time. Oh, hello, what have I done? I'll see you later.